Well, welcome everyone to the data week of the Strong in Six. Let me just toggle a bit between screens so I can see more of you. Let us do this instead. No, that's not what I wanted to do. That is what I wanted to do. So my name is Haraya Del Rosario Gust. You can call me Aya. Again, I am currently in Cebu City in the Philippines, sunny Cebu. I am a first generation entrepreneur. I started my professional journey in the corporate world, and about 13 years ago, I had the unique opportunity to start my own business, which I thought was going to be easy. I was very wrong. Thankfully, I discovered EOS, and in the first 3 years, I was able to scale my business and build a strong leadership team. And now I spend most of my time working with leadership teams across Southeast Asia, sharing with them the gift of EOS, which has allowed me to pursue this passion of working with leadership teams and also traveling, um, eating, experiencing new cultures. And I am going to take you through a deep dive of the data component today. I am joined by my colleagues from EOS Worldwide. We have Maura from the EOS team and Charlotte Chase, our new director of training. Charlotte will be supporting me by helping me answer your questions on the chat. Today, she is new to both our team and to EOS Worldwide. We have all had our first 100 days. She is in her first 100 days, but she's already making a big impact for EOS implementers around the world. So please help me welcome Charlotte into our community. Okay, in just a couple of minutes, we are going to start our deep dive. But before we do, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you want to share something, if you want to ask a question, please raise your digital hand so we can see you. And then we will give you that space to speak. But also, please feel free to use the chat. Okay, otherwise, I'm gonna ask for Mara's help to put everybody on mute. There we go. Also, every week in the Strong in Six Business Challenge, we shine a light on a different hero book of the week. The hero books are one of the books from the EOS Traction Library, and this week, this data week, our hero book is What the Heck is EOS? What the Heck is EOS is a book for employees of companies who are not part of the leadership team but want to know more about EOS. Using this book when you're rolling out EOS to the entire company just helps people understand the EOS system better. So please use this book. This book will also support everyone having a number. To get a free chapter of the book, you can head on to EOS Worldwide, the EOS Worldwide website. Just go to resources and go to books. EOS comes in an audio version, and it's also available in Spanish. And we want to make sure you don't miss this opportunity to connect with EOS community members worldwide. Please do not miss the EOS conference. Those of you who don't know about the EOS conference, this is a yearly coming together of business leaders who work for companies running on EOS. Our upcoming EOS conference will be in Indianapolis, Indiana next year, April 20 to 21. There will also be some bonus content provided by our sponsors on April 19. So if you can make it, you can check out that link that Charlotte dropped into the chat. Please join us in the EOS conference. Very energizing. So, okay, we can go ahead. So you're running your business on EOS, what's next, right? Today, we're going to do a deep dive on the data component. The data component is one of the first 3 key components of your business that when you strengthen, helps make your business transparent, allowing you to smoke out issues before they turn into major train wrecks. right? So just a quick review of the EOS model so we can all appreciate the importance and the relevance of the data component. As you know, there are 6 key components. The vision component is all about making sure that everyone in your organization is 100% strong with where your business is going and what is the plan to get there. People component is all about having great people in your organization because we can't achieve a great vision without great people. The aha here is that all of you will have a different definition of great. So we first need to clarify that definition and make sure that everyone in the company meets that definition of great. And then there's a data component, which is all about being able to run your business on a handful of numbers that gives you an absolute pulse on your business. When these first 3 key components are strong, your organization becomes transparent. It'll be easier for you to see what doesn't align with vision, people who don't quite fit the culture. You'll be able to smoke out these issues and it will help you strengthen the 4th key component, which is the issues component, because every business has issues. Being strong here, this is all about being able to solve your issues as they come up in your business. So issues are always energizing and challenging and new. Process is the 5th key component, and it's all about making sure that everyone does the most important processes in your business in the right and best way all the time, giving you that consistency as you grow your business. And then traction. And here, traction is all about being able to execute against your vision with focus, discipline, and accountability. So every week of Strong in 6, we focus on one of these 6 key components. And today is data. So let's get back to data. Strengthening your data component is all about measuring and tracking essential numbers that drive your company's progress so you can make informed decisions to move you forward in your business. The way that EOS implementation helps you is we teach you tools to strengthen the component, right? So you use the tools to strengthen the component. The EOS tools that help you strengthen your data component also gives you first the ability to predict, helps you develop the ability to predict, which you can use to break through the ceiling, right? We talk about hitting the ceiling and focus day. That the 5 leadership abilities. The second one is the ability to predict, and we get that from using the tools of the data component. Second is it helps you use the power of weekly goals and the analysis of 13-week rolling trends to predict your quarterly results. So if you look at the tools of the data component, they're like a bridge between your quarterlies. They help you make sure to go from quarter to quarter, staying focused, disciplined, and accountable to the results that you commit to at the beginning of that quarter. The third benefit is that when you use the tools of the data component, you're able to start that process of issue solving. It helps you smoke out issues, drop it down, and then eventually solve them. And this is important because sometimes the issues when you're using these tools become obvious to you even before the measurables in your tools turn red. If you're looking at the right data, you will get that feeling that something is off, and we'll go a little bit more into that in just a few minutes. And then finally, the tools of data help you roll out accountability in your entire organization. So everyone has accountability over a number that contributes to the success of your business. So there's a lot of benefits from mastering the tools of the data component. I would like to check in with you now, especially those of you who use the data in your business. I'm sorry, I see Charlotte, you're raising your hand. Go ahead.
We have an inquiry about the slides, if they could be made larger on screen.
Oh, okay. Yes, we can do that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll toggle between the screens. And if you want to see it bigger, I can do that.
And we
Does
also
that-
have in the chat a question about who is attending, if everyone's an implementer. And it looks like there are, excuse me, self-implementers, helping an implementer, and then not yet. And then we have a visionary and a self-implementer integrator. So there's a wide variety of folks in this audience. So lots of integrators. There, I can't count them all. 2, 4, 6. One's a bean counter. So we have an accountant, I think. So just so you have a sense of who's your audience at this time.
Nice, that's great. Is there anybody here who is new to EOS, who maybe who's not yet running EOS in their business and is just curious? Because we're using a lot of terminology. I want to make sure that we're able to connect with you. Yes, okay, there's some. So I'll be a little more conscious about that, and I am going to change this approach. I think you want to see the screens to be larger, so hold on 1 second. I'm not going to do this. Okay, is this better? I want to make sure that we meet your expectations. Okay, shall we continue? Okay, I'm just looking at the chat and okay, great. So let's go into data. Let's review the first tool. Those of you who are new, we help you strengthen the component by teaching you certain tools. And the first tool that we teach when we help you strengthen the data component is the scorecard. The scorecard is a foundational tool. It's one of the 5 tools that you have to master to run EOS in your business, and you roll this out throughout your organization, right? There's many tools in the toolbox, but scorecard is one of the most important ones. It's a foundational tool. The scorecard looks like this. As you know, there are 13 small columns on the right side, and this represents the 13 weeks. It starts with this column of measurables. These are the most important drivers of results in your business. A goal is set for each measurable depending on your targets for each quarter. So those of you who are already using scorecard, this is a reminder, and I will remind you several times today, that after your quarterlies, before you do anything else, please make sure you're updating these goals in your scorecard and maybe even some measurables, because I've worked with leadership teams who forget to update the goals in their scorecards as their targets change, right? So these are related, and I'll talk to that in a little bit more about that later. Who are leaders who own the drivers, which means they make sure that each of these measurables hit the goal for the measurable every week, right? So this is how the scorecard looks like. One of the things that this helps us do is it helps us focus, right, our energy. As a leadership team, we know that we don't have unlimited energy and unlimited time, right, and resources to fix issues as they come up in the business. So in this example, in the last week of September, not all of the numbers are red. So you have this leadership team that is hitting their weekly measurables, but one number is red. So they are focused on solving this potential issue and getting this number back on track, right? And when that happens, something else breaks. So now they're focused on revenue. One of the things that we do is we make sure that there's someone in the leadership team who is obsessing on the entire scorecard, making sure that everything is on track, right? So especially for that person who's usually the integrator accountable for profit and loss. In the week of October, this 14th of October, now the focus is on weekly revenues and cash, right? Goes back on track, another number goes red. So it's a focusing tool as well. It's an energy focusing tool. Okay. Once, as you know, once a number is off track, you drop it down, right? And IDS it. So this I also want to highlight. When a measurable is off track, you need to be ready to drop that down, because if there's no issues, I've seen leadership teams do this in their L10s. Accounts payable, goal 8,000 or less than 8,000, actual is 8,450, no issues. If there are no issues, the measurable will not turn red, right? So it's not going to be off track. So please drop it down and make sure we're focusing on that week, on that measurable, getting that back on track. Okay, so you know this scorecard. This slide shows you what I was talking about a little earlier. The scorecard bridges your quarters, right? So we call it a scorecard because it's a way to keep score. We use it to predict whether we're going to achieve our quarterly targets and win quarter after quarter. Without a scorecard, it's hard to make an accurate prediction. So imagine you are a coach, you're coaching a basketball team and you're competing against another team and it's finals, right? Fourth quarter, there are only 10 more seconds on the shot clock and you want to rally your players knowing that you can win the game. So you call a timeout. What would you say, right? A, hey team, we have a great shot at winning the game. Go out there and do your best. Or, hey team, we are only 1 point behind them. If we can take a safe shot as soon as the clock restarts, we'll get 2 points ahead and we're going to win the game. Here's our play, right? When we use the data component, it becomes easier to clarify what needs to be done and keep score. So I do the latter. From this perspective, using the scorecard is a means to an end, right? There should be a causation relationship between measurables in your scorecard and the results that you're trying to achieve at the end of the quarter. So that when you hit a measurable, that should mean you're gonna hit the quarterly target. It should give you that sense of comfort, right? So you set your targets for this quarter. I cannot annotate it. Let's do it again. If this is your quarterlies, you're setting your targets for this quarter. No week will be perfect, but you use your scorecard, to stay on track. So you get to the quarter and you get to achieve your goals. Okay, so again, 2 things to remember. Update your scorecard after each quarterly. And when a scorecard number is off track, you drop down that measurable. I want to give you a couple of examples of how leadership teams that I work with in Southeast Asia use the scorecard. So here's an example from a leadership team that is in the canning business. So for canned sardines, which is one of their biggest products, right? When they were building their scorecards, one of the most important results is, of course, sales. How do they target sales? How do they make sure they reach their sales targets when it's a long conversion cycle? Well, they need to make sure that they're able to deliver the products on time. Their manufacturing processes are very predictable. And their distribution processes, the turnaround times are very predictable. They have a network of distributors around the country. So as long as the products get to those distributors on time, they're going to hit their sales target. So what can they do about it? The real key to the success of all that machinery, that process, is to have enough fish to put into that process. So they decided to focus on catching fish, and the measurable that they use is tubs of fish. They work their way back and they make sure that every week they're catching enough fish, they have enough tubs of the right fish to get into that production cycle. And if they do that, they know they're going to hit their sales target, right? The other example is of a high-end furniture, a leadership team that I work with that's in the high-end furniture industry. So again, the end goal every 90 days, one of the biggest results that they want to achieve is sales, right? This time in the high-end furniture business, the sales conversion process is even longer. Sometimes you need to deliver products that have been ordered a year in advance for collections, right? To be part of, new collections to be launched. So this time, the way to hit their target sales is to make sure that orders are shipped as they're needed, right? Based on their schedules. So what they can do to influence that is to make sure everything is shipped on time. So the measurable is missed shipment deadlines. They kind of reverse this process, and their target is a very small number, ideally 0, because the moment they miss a deadline, more likely they're going to miss the sales target, right? So it's not as straightforward to choose the measurable, but when you choose the right measurable, it can really help you achieve the goals of your business. The one other example that I have for you is from the client in the outsourcing industry. In outsourcing, especially today, success is driven by the ability of these companies to make sure they have the right people when their clients need it. So the results they want to track is the number of right people in the right seats. And to do this, they need to have the step before that is applicants accepting job offers, right? And for people to accept these job offers, they need to be even given these job offers. They need to pass interviews by the clients. For them to get to that stage, they need to succeed in the past skill sets. For them to get to that stage, we first need to receive their applications, or the client needs to receive the applications. And before those applications are received, with the job market being as competitive as it is today, the recruiters need to make X number of contracts. So the first thing that the client did was they tried to trace this process back to, or the results, they tried to trace that process to where they can influence the results, right? So somewhere here in the beginning of this entire recruitment machinery are levers, drivers of the results that they can track. And they could use any of these to track as measurables. They eventually decided to use number of contracts. So from number of contacts. So from here, what they did was they worked backward to try to get the ratio of the numbers that they need, right? And what they found is to get 10 qualified hires within their target turnaround times, they need to contact about 100 applicants. So this is what ended up in their scorecards. When I was sharing these examples with my colleagues at EOS Worldwide, with Charlotte, and with Victoria, who kicked off this week, Victoria gave me that reminder that it's very important. It's really an art, right? To choose the right measurable for your business. Because if you're measuring too late or too early in the process, as an example, if we're measuring right here in successful interviews, or even before number of contracts, like how many times you go into social media to try to look for qualified candidates. If you're measuring those, you might have another issue that you should be solving. When you're measuring too late into that process, in this example, successful interviews, you might really be having a people issue, right? You're not really measuring a driver of success, you're trying to solve another problem that might be there. It's the same if you're measuring too early in the process. So you gotta, when you're choosing these measurables, this needs to be an IDS process with your leadership team. You know, team, what are really driving success in our business today? And so you try to figure out what that is, and you try. It's a hit and miss. It's not perfect. When you first put together your scorecard, you probably will not get it right the first time. And one of the reasons is this: there's a lot of moving parts, but also you're trying to do two things when you build your scorecard. You're trying to figure out the right measurables to track, and then you're also trying to figure out what's the right target to set for each measurable. So give yourself some time to test these measurables out, these scorecards out when you put them together. I advise my leadership teams, when they first build their scorecards, to give themselves a couple of months, maybe 3 months, before they start to change measurables, so they can see whether there's really causation and whether they have the right targets to predict success. But eventually you're going to get there. It's going to be worth it, right? Here are a few more examples of some scorecard measurables that I've seen other leadership teams use. Number of proposals out, orders received, average call handling time, predicts costs, right? Utilization rate, daily cash balance, case study downloads, and average delivery time, customer satisfaction ratings, number of fabric yards. So I work with leadership teams that manufacture fabric, and they use fabric yards. Usually it's an indication when they manufacture less than their targets that there's some breakdown in machinery or not enough people in the business, in the factories to produce the targets that they've set. Downtime, interviews, shipment delays, right? So let me see. Okay, I'm just missing a slide right here. 1 second. Okay, sorry about this. I am here. No, I'm not there. Okay. So I'm gonna pause and just see if there are any questions in our chat. Okay, do you have any examples from membership or subscription companies? Any examples from membership or subscription companies? Let me think. So I don't believe I I don't remember seeing anything, but if anybody here has any ideas, it could be membership companies could be similar to companies like outsourcing that try to get applicants in, right? So you probably you probably want to measure applicants or contacts. But I'm not sure, not my business, right? But I hope that's helpful. So when you've picked your measurables and you feel like they're the right ones, it's important that you use the tools the right way, right? The measurables the right way. These are some fundamentals that you follow when you're using your scorecard. The first one is your scorecards need to be reviewed weekly with your leadership team. So it's not a report to be submitted to the integrator. You go through each of your scorecards and scorecard measurables and you review that. What you want is to develop pulse on your business as a leadership team. You know, you want to be able to spot possible issues as a leadership team and understand those trends. 2 is you're looking for 5 to 50 numbers, not 20, 25, 50 numbers, right? Not all numbers are predictive. I think one of our challenges in our time as leaders is that there are just so many numbers you can track. There's a lot of data. Finding out which data is worth tracking is the key, right? To an effective measurable. It doesn't have to be exact. We're not hitting our weekly measurables for the sake of hitting the weekly measurables. We're trying to establish trends, right? So one of the visuals that I use with leadership teams is, you did that island exercise, right? Imagine you're on an island and you can stay on that beautiful island. We have a lot in the Philippines. As long as you can assure your owners that the business is going to hit the quarterly target. But there's no sales signal, no nothing. The only way for you to predict whether you're going to have the results that you want at the end of the quarter is if a guy gives you this piece of paper. I actually use, if a bird drops a piece of paper in front of you every week, what are the 5 to 15 numbers that you need to see on there so that you can make a decision whether to stay in the island or leave, right? So you have to have less of these numbers rather than too many. Someone needs to be accountable for each measurable. This relates to the accountability chart, right? Usually whoever is accountable for the function that will use this driver is accountable for the driver, but also someone needs to be accountable for the entire scorecard to make sure that all the numbers are on track every week. There has to be a goal for each measurable. And please, again, last reminder to update this at the end of a quarterly. If the goal is not hit, you drop it down. It will not be off track if there's no issue. And you need to look at the numbers 13 weeks at a glance so you can see patterns and trends, right? Some numbers won't turn red right away. They won't be off track right away. But if you look at the past 3 weeks, you can see that the numbers are going the wrong direction. So even before it turns red, you can actually smoke out an issue there. So it's important to look at these trends. Okay, so that's the scorecard. Let me just pause here and see if anyone has any challenges, any questions on the scorecard. You can either unmute or you can drop your questions in the chat. Sure, can we show the 6 fundamentals again? Here we go. Yeah, go ahead. I actually had a slide. So I was trying to show you this, but now I don't see it anymore. This is a fun slide, right? So I wanted to go back to this and just ask you how you're using data in your business today. Can you drop that down in the chat? How are you using your data today? Oh, and Kim, did you get the notes that you needed? Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. I'm not going to force that issue. I will move on. It's okay. Back to the OS model. So the first thing you do as a leadership team is to build that scorecard to give you a pulse on your business, right? From there, the second measurable is, or the second tool is measurables. I will pause because I just saw some questions here. Charlotte, you want to go ahead and read that out?
Yes, sorry, that took a few minutes for items to get put in the chat. Excuse me. When you asked about how are they using their data, we use it as an indicator so we can adjust our course of action where required. That's one. We have fallen into the trap of measuring items we can't really control, need to figure out how to track items we can control instead. Good point. And then we do have a question here. How critical is it to have a metric be activity based?
How critical is it to have a metric be activity based? Rick, can you give us a little more context on that question, if you don't mind?
Are you hearing me?
We can
Yeah.
now.
Okay. The thing that I see is like specifically from our sales team is quite often that, you know, they're measuring sales or revenue, which is fun and it's easy to collect, but sometimes I wonder if what we really want to see is like the precursors, kind of like you were talking about, the calls that they're making to people, the kind of running people through the I forget what you guys refer to that as, but the cold leads to warm leads to becoming a customer.
Right. The process, the
Yeah,
sales. Yeah.
but and when I try to press for that or ask for it, there's quite a bit of pushback. Like generally it comes in the way of simply saying, well, you can see our sales figures, isn't that good enough? And I just feel like that's behind us already.
I get it.
That doesn't help us predict.
Right. I understand. So what I've seen, so I've worked with almost 80 leadership teams around Southeast Asia. And what I've seen is sales, when they're in the scorecard, they work when the sales conversion cycles are short, very short or real time. Like if they're retail stores, right? They get sales every week. It makes sense. They can use it to predict. But when you're in an industry like the high-end luxury high-end or luxury furniture industry, that doesn't, it's sales is not predictive, because first of all, it's the sales conversion cycles are so long that by the time you get your sales, yeah, that's the result of several quarters, right, of activity. So activity-based measures are just more helpful because you can control them, which relates to a question earlier by Jack, right? But also it doesn't have to be activity-based. You can look for a measurable that you may not be able to control directly, but that you still can use to predict your results. As an example is in that furniture business, right? Shipments, shipment delays 0. Sometimes the reason why the shipments are delayed is not controllable, but they still need to know that, because if they know that, they know that 3 months, 6 months down the road, they might hit their sales targets in a big way. So majority of the measurables there, we would probably like to be activity based just so we can drive it, but not all the time. So you're absolutely right. You're looking for measurables that you can use to predict. And maybe it would help to share with your leadership team that we're not using these measurables to grade your performance, right? At the end of the day, we are going to be evaluated as a leadership team on our ability to meet the target. In quarterlies, those of you who are already running on EOS, we don't talk about the scorecard after the focus day in the quarterlies, unless it's a tool that we want to deep dive on or there's an issue with their scorecard. Otherwise, it's not there. It's not there because it's a tool to get us there. It's a means to an end. But some leadership teams, they end up using the scorecard as kind of a weekly report card. So they're using the tool in the wrong way. So now that we're talking about it, Rick, thank you for reminding us that there is a bigger issue. Before you even fix the scorecard, I think we need to really drive the point of the scorecard, what it's for, what is the tool for, and then we can build the tool. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. You made a comment that I wanted to capture, and you said that, and of course I didn't write fast enough, but you said, does our scorecard help us? And then anyway, that was all that I wrote.
These are
Um,
these are
I think it was
scorecard.
some, did you say does our scorecard help us as a leadership team um, make sure that we're going to meet our targets or something
Yeah. When
along
you
that?
look at these numbers, does it give you the confidence that you're gonna hit the target at the end of the quarter? So we live our lives in 90-day worlds, right? We
Yeah.
don't celebrate when we hit a weekly scorecard number because the game is not over, right? We need to get it to the end of the quarter. So when we're looking at your scorecard measurables, what's important is you get the confidence to um, hit the end of quarter targets. And if you're not getting that feeling, then you have to fix something, because you don't want to get to the end of the quarter into quarterlies and see that you're missing your targets. So the scorecard should give you this either confidence or discomfort, but it's you're moving because of this scorecard, because of the information that you get, right? Let's see what else is. I see some more comments in the chat, Charlotte. Do you want to highlight some items there?
We have people helping people, participants giving some sound suggestions to others about tracking proposals and leads. Should you be changing the scorecard quarterly based on what is in your rocks for the quarter? There's a question.
The scorecard measurable itself, you may want to add maybe a measurable or two, but you don't always have to. You just need to think about that. It's not a must, right? Your rocks are a different set of tools, and they have a different purpose. So you have the scorecard to help you predict results. The rocks is more of it's also a focusing tool, but it helps you make sure that you're focusing your energy on your most important initiatives for the quarter. So they're two different tools. They're supporting two different components too. The rocks is your foundational tool for strengthening your traction component. It's about focus, discipline, and accountability. Your scorecard is around data, your ability to predict the results in your business. So they're not the same. That said, sometimes there are quarters, like there are industries that have this kind of highs and lows during the year, and there are some highs or lows where it makes sense to add one or two measurables in the scorecard just because of the season you're in, where usually it will not be part of your scorecard. So that's what I meant. But your scorecard should be like the dashboard of a sport. It shouldn't be moving all that much, and you're using it to get a sense of your business all the time, right? But that's a tool. That's a great thing to think about too and reflect on, is all the tools in the toolbox of EOS are tools. So please use them to help you strengthen the component. You need to understand what the tool is for and then use it for what it's for, right? So that's just what I wanted to add there. And thank you for helping each other out. Health first being our first core value in EOS.
We have another question. Does anyone have examples of measurables for a call center rep that you can provide?
There's a few of those. There's call handling time. You want to shorten call handling time. The number of, they use a lot of efficiency ratios in the call center space. Yes, conversion rates, another one from
Conversion rate.
Kristen. Yeah.
That seems to be the questions, and again, the help that's being provided is awesome.
Yeah, so thank you, and thank you, Charlotte. William, you said a scorecard for the rocks might work. So that's a great springboard for the next tool here, which is measurables, right? So measurables are numbers in your business that help you strengthen the data component. What we want in our business is that everyone has at least one number that they're driving in our business. We use measurables to put clarity in our business so people understand exactly what needs to be done, right? So instead of saying, you know, you guys need to do better, you want to use measurables and say, you guys, we need to complete this within 5 minutes, right? Or congratulations, you're doing such a great job. Can be, great job. Your rating is 10 over 10 in the last customer success survey or something. So we want the discipline of using measurables to clarify, to set clear expectations, and then keep those expectations clear in the business. And you can use measurables for rocks. Absolutely. Your rocks need to be smart, right? They need to be specific. They need to be measurable. You need to understand how a rock looks like when it's done. And a great way to do that is with numbers, is with measurables. Okay, so there you go. Some examples for you from Jeff.
Yep.
Okay. So any questions on using measurables? You just want to look at everything in your business that can be clarified by just using numbers. And that becomes a discipline to strengthen your data component. So reviewing the EOS model, there's vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. The one other thing that I want to mention here is you can see in this EOS model, for me, it's a reminder that you really need to strengthen your 6 key components, because when one of these components are weak, it's hard to get what you want from your business. Data, if you're looking at the right data, right? In the model, it's opposite the issues component, because having a strong data component really helps you smoke out issues. It's true for all the other components, but with data, right? If you can smoke out the right issues and in a timely manner, you can really strengthen your issues component. But the reverse of this is true. Even if you're great at solving issues, when you're looking at the wrong data or when you don't have the data on time, we're wasting that resource of issue solving because we're not able to smoke out the right issues, right? So we have to strengthen these 6 key components. We have to strengthen the data component. Okay, so let's do just a quick poll here, and I'll ask Maura to launch that poll. There's 2 questions in this poll. The first one is, on a scale of 1 to 100, how strong do you feel you are in the data component? And maybe when we get about maybe 80% answering the poll, we can share the results, Maura.
Absolutely. We're at about 55% participation right now. So I'll give it another minute or 2.
Yeah, they might be behind your Zoom screens. So maybe move your Zoom screen around so you can see the poll. Okay, maybe we share the results already, Maura.
Okay, so right now we are looking at about 42% of who we have in attendance right now feel that they are about 26 to 50% strong in the data component. About 27 of us feel like we're about 51 to 75% strong. About 16% of us feel like we're 76 to 100% strong. And then 13% of us feel that we're about 1 to 25% strong.
Okay, so
most of us are living in that real sweet middle section.
Okay, so the second question in the poll is this: after the discussions today, if you score below 80%, Do you know how to get to 80% or better now? So to get 80% strong or better in the data component, right? You need to be able to run your business on a handful of numbers. You want to be like a doctor. When you see a patient for the first time, you don't send that patient out to go and get this extensive lab tests. You first get a handful of numbers to give you this pulse on whether this patient is healthy. Your scorecard does the same thing for you in your business, except your patient's your business, right? So if you score below 80, do you know how to get to 80% or better? You know how to close the gap? Let's see what we're getting.
Yeah, we are, looks like we've got about 73% of us are saying yes, and about 27% are saying no.
Okay, great. So we have a few minutes left in this deep dive. Those of you who don't feel like they have the tools to strengthen the component, please feel free to drop those questions that might help you while we have this community, and let's try to help you out, help you strengthen your data component as we head on to Q&A. So if you drop your questions on the chat, Charlotte will help us IDS them, choose those issues. Okay, can we have the recording of this session? Okay, there you go. Mara said yes, we will email out a recording shortly. So where do you feel like you need help with the data? And for the next maybe 5 more minutes or so, we can leverage the collective intelligence and experience in this Zoom room to help you out. Okay, so
Okay, we've got a few questions popping up. We have just a quick statement from Jacques. We are a construction company and our profitability relies on efficiencies in the field. So we are completely stuck on how to measure that in a way that would predict instead of lag behind.
okay, so let's experience share here. I think would be a great thing to do. Those of you who have any experience with construction and what measurables are used, I can also experience share. So I've worked with a couple of leaders, or worked with a couple of leadership teams who are in this space, right? One of the things that are measured is across those two companies is turnaround times. So either zero delay on projects. So what they do, it's always like part of the construction business apparently is that something gets delayed, but the leadership at some point, right? But the leadership team uses that just to see which projects to focus on. The second are labor efficiency ratios. So they track, they look at labor, this leadership team, as an investment. So they relate the work done by each worker. They have a number to measure that. So they know if there are just too many workers producing the work, the efficiency goes down. So it's basically looking at the costs of labor and the billable part of the project, that part that's accomplished. I don't want to over teach, but I hope that is helpful. And those of you who have some other experience, please drop it down. I also saw, so when they release materials from their main warehouse, they track the value of that, and then they compare that with the amount of work that's been completed. And they have like a ratio that they maintain. So when too much materials, so it's similar to labor, too many people are assigned to a project, and the ratio that you show, the ratios that they use show that. So then they can look into it, either they pull back some resources and put in another project, or they speed up construction. So that's my share for you. I hope that is helpful.
There's a good question in here. Does anyone have experience or ideas on overcoming resistance to the importance of scorecards?
That's a great question. Those of you who have experience, please drop it down. I can share my personal experience here. Is we celebrate the results of the quarter with and tie it back to the scorecard, right? So we share with our teams that whenever a result is met, we share we celebrate that in our state of the company, and we take a minute to have those people talk about what they did during the quarter, and that's rehearsed, right? We have them talk about the scorecard. So it's basically my learning there is we reinforce the behavior that we celebrate and reward the behavior that we want to reinforce. That's one thing. Two is I relate the scorecard to other things that use a scorecard that they may not realize, right? Like, driving a car. The result that we want is to get to where we're going in 4 hours. And we never know that with the traffic, but we look at our dashboard, and when we see that, we might be 1 hour late to the wedding because of all of this traffic, we speed up, we call people, like we use this dashboards or the scorecards to predict, and it's very helpful. I just try to relate that to some other experience so they get the concept. What I find with most EOS tools is if the team gets the concept of the tool and why the tool's there, it's easier for them to adapt it. Most of my metrics are kind of old. I try to revisit them, but get stuck in a rut. Okay. With 3 minutes to go, Rick, I wonder if you have tried kind of crowdsourcing these measurables, like asking this from your team, getting some ideas, and maybe even getting ideas from the community, right? Other companies running on EOS or even other businesses in general. Sometimes even looking at what other industries do that use data well might help you get unstuck there. So I hope that's helpful. IDS stands for Identify, Discuss, and Solve. We have a couple more minutes to go. Our biggest challenge with the scorecard is the amount of time it takes during the week to track and report cash flow, expenses, reserve cash balance on a weekly basis, along with other responsibilities. I understand. Before we run out of time, I just want to point that out. So thank you, James. Some of the scorecards that you are tracking might be better put in the financial level 10 meetings. So once a month, you need to have a level 10 meeting that looks at your performance for the month. And it is during that time that you look at your monthly measurables. And some of these numbers that you track might make better sense to measure there, right? So the way that it goes, if you're not familiar with it, is once a month, there's another scorecard that is reviewed after your weekly scorecard, and that's your monthly scorecard. You look at your monthly measurables. Same thing happens when a measurable is not hit, you drop it down and you IDS it. So maybe some of those might be better measured there. If you have any other questions and we are out of time, please know that you can email your questions to us and we'll get back to you and we'll get you some help. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and investing some time into the data component. I wish you a great week. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you end the week strong. We'll see you again. Please don't miss issues next week. Let's strengthen our issues component. Bye, everybody.